The Objective News Network? There are two rules of law in America. Hello, this is John Hnatio reporting for the Objective News Network. It now appears that there are two rules of law in the United States. One for our political and government leaders, and another for the rest of us. On January 6, 2021, a large group of demonstrators marched to the U.S. Capitol and engaged in violence because they believed that the U.S. presidential electoral process had been despoiled. Some of the demonstrators, egged on by undercover agents of a Democrat politically weaponized Federal Bureau of Investigation, did the terribly wrong thing by engaging in violence. Violence is never acceptable. Oath Keepers extremist group founder Stewart Rhodes was just sentenced to 18 years in federal prison for orchestrating the plot to attack the U.S. Capitol. Other severe punishments are awaiting in the wings of the Garland Justice Department for other demonstrators too. But Mr. Rhodes was, and probably still is, just the tip of a much larger iceberg. More than 2 years after the rioters stormed the U.S. Capitol, the Garland Justice Department has already charged more than 1,000 people, encompassing, quote, the most wide-ranging investigations, close quote, in the whole history of the Justice Department. The demonstrators, most of whom were entirely peaceful, by the way, believed that Democratic Party politicians had somehow fixed the presidential election process to make sure that Donald Trump would never reclaim the presidency of the United States. After all, President Trump was the target of Democrat political attacks, from the former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, former Chair of the Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler, and of course Adam Schiff, the former chair of the House Select Committee on Intelligence, in an all-out effort to fight fire with fire by preventing President Trump from ever regaining the White House again at all costs. Lies, deceit, misinformation, disinformation, media manipulation, and an impeachment were all part of a political duel to the death between the Democrat and Republican parties to win the White House at the expense of the notion of good and proper government and the American people they were all supposed to be serving. Well, as things turned out, whether we like it or not, most of the demonstrators, at least the peaceful ones, turned out to be exactly right. Yes, that's right. They were all exactly right. And the proof is now irrefutable. The release of the Durham report provides clear, compelling, and overwhelming evidence that Nancy Pelosi, Jerry Nadler, and Adam Schiff and their Democrat politically weaponized sycophants in the Justice Department and the FBI were part of a politically motivated, racketeering, influenced, corrupt enterprise that interfered with the presidential electoral process in abject violation to the U.S. Constitution. Make no mistake, their actions were both seditious and criminal, far worse than the demonstrators who they are now sending to jail. On the other side of the equation, former President Donald Trump and his Republican followers certainly have nothing to be proud of either. They too did not act in the best interests of the Republic nor its citizens. No matter whether Democrat or Republican, our political and government leaders let the American people down in the worst way in the whole history of the nation. Now, if you are just an ordinary American, How can you fight a politically weaponized and morally corrupt machine that steals an election by interfering with the process itself, by funding and carrying forth a series of frauds on the American people, like the totally fabricated Steele dossier paid for by a corrupt FBI, the Democrat politically weaponized Justice Department and the FBI, and the wholesale manipulation of the media to feed the American people downright lies, and much, much, much worse. But the truth remains, while President Trump did not understand the true nature of the conspiracy, by wrongly believing and insisting that illegitimate votes were tampered with and that vote counts at the local level were not accurate, he was, in fact, correct. The presidential election process was being tampered with, but it was done in a much more sinister and sophisticated type of vote fraud by our own political and government leaders that we in America have never, ever experienced before. So what we are left with in all of this is that the same politically weaponized Justice Department and the FBI that committed the crimes in the first place are now rigorously meting out justice to a group of violent and nonviolent demonstrators to deter not another attack on Capitol Hill, but to suppress the will of the people and to keep them silent in order to maintain their own political power. Don't you believe for 1 minute that they are punishing the January 6th demonstrators to achieve justice? No, they are doing it to send an unmistakable deterrent signal to the American people, people like you and me, that if they dare speak out against the growing corruption of our own government leaders, including some members of our own Congress, they too will go to jail. Hypocrisy is being taken to all new heights, never seen in this country before. Meanwhile, the seditious political and government leaders who themselves egregiously violated the Constitution and the presidential electoral process continue to remain unpunished and still continue to wield their power to oppress the very people they are supposed to be serving. 2 rules of law, one for politicians and the Department of Justice and FBI agents who do their dirty work, and another set of laws for the rest of us. So instead of pursuing a proper path of wisdom, healing, and commensurate punishment, our government leaders now seek to further cement their authoritarian role over us as citizens of the Republic. It is now time for the demise of the two-party system in America. What we need is a whole new political party that professes belief in the moral principles and allegiance to the Constitution and a single rule of law in the United States of America. Period. I leave you with the prophetic words of Frederick Bastiat in his famous book, The Law, and I quote, "But unfortunately, law by no means confines itself to its proper functions. And when it has exceeded its proper functions, it has not done so merely in some inconsequential and debatable manners. The law has gone further than this. It has acted in direct opposition to its own purpose. The law has been used to destroy its own objective. It has been applied to annihilate the justice that it was supposed to maintain, to limiting and destroying rights which its real purpose was to respect. The law has placed the collective force at the disposal of the unscrupulous who wish, without risk, to exploit the person, liberty, and property of others. It has converted plunder into a right in order to protect plunder, and it has converted lawful defense into a crime in order to punish lawful defense. Close quote. It is what it is for May 29, 2023. This is John Hnatio reporting for the Objective News Network. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you again.